Welcome back to How to the Biz. In today's video, we will be making a diorama featuring a demonic being hidden in its lair. I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. I start by cutting several circular pieces from XPS foam. These will form the foundation of the runes. I also made a slightly larger ring that I broke up in several pieces to extend past the wooden base, just to break the perfect round shape and make the layout feel more natural and uneven. For the floor of the runes, I used one of the inner circles left over from cutting the larger rings. I started by drawing out some random stone pattern. After that was done, I went on to destroy the rings for the runes, cutting out large sections and using some of these broken pieces to build up a few extra layers. Once the structure felt right, I chipped away parts of the floor with a knife to give it a more ruined and even look. To make the ruins blend more into the surrounding nature, I wanted it to look as if they were carved straight from the natural rocks. So I started adding random pieces of foam around the base, building up some height and thickness to shape the terrain. Once everything had dried, I started shaping the foam into rocks. I cut away the straight edges first, then added lots of vertical, diagonal and horizontal cuts with my knife so I could create a rough natural texture, using the back of the blade and my fingers for a more organic weathered look. The ruins still needed some brickwork texture, so I drew it on with a pencil first. Then I made small cuts along the lines to help the grooves sink in. In this final step, I pressed a rough rock on the surface to break up smooth edges and give it a stone texture. Now all the foam work is done, I went on to cover the whole diorama in a 50-50 mix of Mod Podge and black paint. This will strengthen the foam and give the diorama a base coat. For painting the diorama, I started by layering on a thinned down dark grey over the stonework, then blended in lighter tones while the paint was still wet to keep everything soft and natural. Once it dried, I added a yellow and brown wash to bring out more weathered realistic tones. I wanted to add a few trees to bring more height variation to the diorama, and make it feel like part of a forest. I started with some round balsa wood beams, carving them from a thick base to a thin tip. Once shaped, I sanded them smooth and added small pieces of iron wire for the branches. To give the trunk a rough texture, I sprinkled on some coarse forest flocking. While that was drying, I gave the whole diorama a dark green wash to make it feel more overgrown and earthy. Once the tree had dried, I painted it with a coat of burnt umber. For the final step, it needed smaller branches and pine needles. Normally I'd use spray glue for this, but since I was out, I used PVA instead, sprinkling long brown grass over the branches and finishing it with a layer of dark green flocking to tie everything together. While I waited for the first flocking to dry on the trees, I went onto the diorama and covered it in a fine green flocking to resemble moss growth. To give the diorama a stronger sense of plant growth, I added different kinds of foliage across the scene. I started by placing ivy foliage along parts of the structure, then hung some fake sheep moss over the ruined walls and between the rocks to create that overgrown look. I also applied some Vallejo earth texture to the front of the diorama to build up a bit of soil, and placed the two trees into position. For the final touch, I added a few paper ferns from Earthwork Scenics to finish off the forest floor. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and leave a comment down below, as this helps me grow the channel. Thank you for watching. It was dark times. The rich feasted behind their walls, safe in their cities, while we starved. Our farmlands were struck by plague, and the few crops we managed to save were stolen. Desperation took root. Some tried breaking into the cities, hoping to steal what they needed to survive. None ever returned. Even the wild animals had vanished. But we needed to eat. We couldn't let our families starve, so we had to try. We went into the forest beyond the Stoneshield Hills. It was cold there, and the wind made no sound. All we heard was the crackling of dead branches beneath our feet. We followed the path for hours, or at least we thought we did. The light faded faster between the trees, and soon every direction looked the same. We no longer knew where we came from, only where the dark led us. Then, in the distance, something moved. A shape between the trees, pale, calm, almost glowing in the light. A deer stood there watching us, and afraid, as if it had been waiting. We drew our bows and loosed the arrow. The beast was struck, but it didn't fall. We gave chase to the trick undergrowth, hearts pounding, branches breaking beneath our boots. And somewhere in that chaos, we lost Joseph. A scream broke through the silence, sharp and human, and then it stopped. We ran towards the sound, but what we found was beyond reason. Only Joseph's torso remained, and a trail of blood leading deeper into the woods. What kind of monster could have done this? We followed the trail until we began to hear it. Faint chanting, carried on the cold wind. It led us to a set of stone steps, rising up through the mist towards an overgrown ruin. The walls were covered in webs, and the air felt thick, heavy, alive. The chanting grew louder. We don't know what waits us here. We can't turn back now.